Welcome to Fieros Reborn with me, Fieros Reborn. Oh no, I thought for a moment I thought I had my flame thing on. But I did earlier on. I don't know. Instead I have my my awesome beautiful necklace thing, which is strangely I am not as self-conscious about this as I thought I would be. As in, wearing something like this would have been quite a self-consciousness provoking thing for me in the past because it's quite big, it's quite bold, uh, and it's a bit of a statement piece. And I'm liking the fact that I can wear it, and then as I go about the day, I don't find myself too preoccupied with it there. Like, I occasionally think I'm occasionally aware of it and I go, oh, is someone going to notice it and are they going to comment positively or are they going to comment negatively? Because there's sometimes the kind of craving to be recognized positively, but then that same craving can be easily flipped to a negative criticism. So, as in, like, part of me just wants to be recognized, whether I'm being recognized as being good or recognized as being bad, recognized as being attractive or recognized as being unattractive, recognized as being positive or recognized as being negative, whatever. So part of me wants people to see this and go, oh, that's cool. And then another part of me fears that people will see it and go, oh, what the hell is that? Yeah. And I'm kind of like, I've realised, okay, so if I'm feeling self-conscious about it, I can put it away. It's sort of like, it's like having my heart on a sleeve kind of thing, but on my chest. It's like having my heart on display or having my spirituality on display. And so sometimes that's nice and I want it to be exposed and I want to feel like, yeah, proud to have it there. And then when I feel a bit kind of shy or scared, or if I feel like I'm in the company of negative people, then I'll kind of tuck it away, sort of like keeping myself to myself somewhat. Like having little cards, like if you've got your poker hand, you can show your poker hand or you can hold it back. Um, so it feels like this is having my cards on display, having my inner self on display, and then if I feel like it's not wise, wise to have my inner self on display, then I'll put it in. So it's cool because if I do feel self-conscious, I'll be like, oh, I'll just put it back in. And then sometimes I'm like, no, I want to have it out. I don't care what people say. So, but I like the option. I like that it's kind of, I can have it on display or not. I mean, I prefer it. I think it looks great, personally. I think it's a very bright and colourful thing, and I like it. But sometimes also, I want to actually feel the thing touching my bare skin rather than have it outside. So I'll put it there because it's like, now I'm more in contact with my own feelings. Just like I can feel it there more. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's just an interesting thing. Um, it's it's a new thing to be experimenting with, and strangely, I haven't discarded it. Like I felt like I may well just discard it. Like I get kind of bored of things quite quickly, especially something like this because it's quite a centerpiece. It's quite a sort of big. It's big. It's a big statement piece, and I would often make a statement piece of some kind. Like I'd wear a bracelet or I'd buy a necklace thing and I'd have it for a week or so and then I get bored of it. And I also feel like sometimes I get rid of things because I don't want to become too attached to them. And then I kind of get rid of them. Well, that's what I just said. Yeah, I get rid of them. And I notice also I do this a bit with money because sometimes I feel like I can't handle having money because I feel like it ties me down somehow and I have to kind of get rid of it. I can't handle having too much energy in my system. Yeah, so this kind of thing represents sometimes like it could feel great to wear it and then occasionally it could be oppressive because it's heavy. So it's weird. It's weird. It's interesting. It's interesting. Rather than weird, it's interesting. It's a new thing to have. It really does feel like I'm bearing my soul by wearing it somewhat. It's like I don't know. Yeah. Let's keep it out. Let's keep it out. So that's just about my necklace. Also, I'm on Cocoscope now. Not right now. Well, yeah, probably am right now, depending on what time frame you're watching this. Cocoscope, the alternative to YouTube, where you can actually be paid as a creator, which is marvelous. Let's put it down to about that. Yeah. Good. I'm so glad. And I got my first tip already. Yes! Rock and roll! $10. I don't know how much of that I'll actually get, because there's like some there's a percentage that Cocoscope takes, which is 25%, and then a little bit extra is held back for protection against fraud as well. So that's interesting. I keep saying interesting today. I never usually say interesting so much. I hate the word interesting usually. Anyway, today we will be doing a Fieros story time on the subject of Mr.B, because he came up as a topic today. I went out with my friends to a I keep wanting to say barbecue. There was a barbecue kind of thing there. There's like burgers and hot dogs and stuff. I had hot dog. So I've been wanting to have a hot dog for ages. And so the subject of my previous gay relationship came up. I think I brought it up because I mentioned the word lesbians, and then like we got fixated on that for a while, and then it turned to my previous gay relationship, the topic of conversation. And I got uncomfortable talking about it. I didn't really want to talk about it partly because I talk about it all the time here, and also because I want to be done with it. I hate the fact that this thing keeps coming up from my past, you know. So I mean, the questions that were asked me tonight were like, what was it like? And I don't know really it wasn't really specific questions. It was kind of like general, you were with a guy, what was that like and why and stuff. I think maybe because I was talking about lesbians and then I got it turned on me like, well, you were a lesbian once, or you were a homosexual once or something. And yeah, I don't know. Oh, it was uncomfortable to speak about. Yeah. But I felt also some progress had been made, because oftentimes I wouldn't really know what my overall feeling about that relationship was, and I always kind of felt like slightly confused or had mixed feelings about what my overall sense of it was. And now, after speaking about it for so long, I have fucking hell. What am I doing? I have realised that my overall sense of that relationship is that it was negative, because there has been a part of me that has like been trying to kind of protect or say something positive about it, right? It may not be coming through in the videos, but there's a part of me that's in myself, in my mind, in my emotions, that is trying to kind of explain that there must have been something good to stay there, and yet the overall sense that I get of that relationship, as it was a horrible relationship where most of the feelings involved were this negative, sick, codependent, enmeshed feeling, where it was all relationship roles, and it was very whiny, and it was a strange kind of intimacy where the intimacy was really based on being whiny and needy and codependent with each other and enmeshed with each other. Yeah. So it's the worst relationship of my life. It's been the worst relationship of my life. It was the worst relationship of my life. And it's almost like it's taken me a hell of a long time to even realize that, how bad it was and how much unhappiness there was in that relationship. It's like, because I mean, my parents used to like him. My parents would always say, "Oh, I like Mr.B. I like Mr.B."
Okay, that's obviously not his real name, but they would say, "Oh, I like him. I like him." I think he's a nice guy or something. But the point that I'm making here in these videos is no one really knew the truth of our relationship apart from me and him, and I'm not even sure he really knew the truth of our relationship because he was kind of living in this strange, delusional kind of state. Delusional's such a strong word, but I mean delusional to the point that he wasn't kind of having like a sort of hallucination type of delusion. He was having delusional state of mind to. I mean that he wasn't really connected to how I was feeling and how I was experiencing the relationship, and so he was kind of painting an image to himself of how the relationship was going as being great and wonderful and perfect, without realizing that actually I was having a horrendous situation for myself and I wasn't enjoying it at all and I wanted to get out of it and I was finding it extremely hard and I didn't want to be there and I was feeling anxious all the time and I didn't want to have the sex with him. And I felt trapped and I felt confused about my sexuality. And then he would portray the relationship to himself and to other people and even to me as being a great relationship. And that's another aspect of his personality, was that he was very perfection seeking. So he would control the flow of the relationship to maintain a sense of perfection, or perfection is the best way to describe it. So some examples of that would be he came over to uni once or twice, but I'll tell the story of one specific time that I remember. He came over to uni while at my house, my room in uni, right, in my St. Patrick's halls at Reading, Reading University, University of Reading. That's what they call it, Reading Uni, right? So he came over to stay the night, I think. He initially would have wanted to stay for the weekend, but I managed to pull the rule. There's a rule kind of thing that you're not allowed to stay more than one night, I think, in the halls if you're a guest. So I managed to kind of say, I don't want you here, really. I didn't want him there at all, really. And I felt like I was making a concession to him and to the relationship. I mean, like, I really have to pick apart, like, why did I stay in that relationship for so long? I mean, it was an ongoing choice I was making to not leave. But it was also the sort of feeling was that I didn't have a choice. That's the feeling of the trappedness. You feel like you don't have a choice. You feel like you have to be in there. That somehow facing the option of breaking up with a person is way more painful than to stay in the relationship. So somehow that guilts you into staying in the relationship, or it just oppresses you somehow to staying in the relationship. So, I mean, my reasons were very codependent, which was I couldn't handle how he would feel. I didn't want to hurt him, was one of my reasons, or my main reason. I didn't want to ruin his life or something like that. I didn't want to hurt him, but there's a better word than that, than hurt. It's like devastate him or something. Or I couldn't allow him to have his own emotions, and also I could see how he would flip out. He was, excuse my phrase here, but what you would call a bunny boiler. Right? It's a pretty strong term. Maybe that's triggering for some of you. But I'm going to look it up. Bunny boiler. It's a woman here that's it's used for. A woman who follows... No. A woman who acts vengefully after having been spurned by her lover. Now, I wouldn't necessarily... It's not necessarily a woman. Okay? This guy would be a qualify for the bunny boiler. So let's read this again. So we've also got clingy, possessive, overbearing, psycho bitch of a girlfriend. Now let's just change some of the phraseology here. clingy, possessive, overbearing, psycho, queer queen of a boyfriend? Queen of a boyfriend? Queen? Don't know what the right words are. Okay, yeah, so we've got that. And then another part here says, second definition, this is on Urban Dictionary. A woman who follows or observes her mark persistently, especially out of obsession or derangement, stress derangement. It says, a bunny boiler's mark is a man that she has had sex with maybe one time. What is this? This doesn't make any sense. Right, okay. Inspired fatal attraction when the mistress of Michael Douglas boils his daughter's rabbit on the kitchen stove in a pot because he decides to stay with his wife instead of her. Yeah. After a relationship breakup, the person who wants some kind of revenge, like stalking or harassment. An unhinged and overly possessive woman. I think we need to expand this definition to just a person. An unhinged and overly possessive person, from the rabbit boiling scene in the film Fatal Attraction. We've got another definition here. A vile, vindictive person who can't let who can't let their other person go. Made worse if man and woman have child together. Okay. So we've got mentally unhinged, violently jealous, but often attractive person. Okay, so he would fit in that definition. Possibly not fully and not all the time, but he would fit in that definition. He was a bit of a bunny boiler, and that feels somewhat good to say that. He was a bunny boiler. He was a bunny boiler. He would go insane. Right, we need to talk more about how insane he would get occasionally. Now, I've got too many fucking stories about him to tell. So there's this one occasion. I'll try and tell the first story that I started telling. He came over to my place, right? I'd managed to get it so that he would only be staying for one night because I didn't want him there at all. Anyway, I didn't want to be having sex with him. I didn't actually want to be in bed with him either. Oh my God, the things that I realise now. I found it uncomfortable to even be sleeping with him. I found it weird to have him in my bed or in a bed with him because we got this airbed made up, and it's like I felt. Now this is not his fault. This is my own personal feeling, right? My own personal feeling about being with him, next to him in a bed, is that I just didn't like the feeling of being in bed with a man. You know, maybe that's some deep repressed homophobic tendency or what, but maybe it's just my sexual preference. I found it really uncomfortable and somewhat distressing. It's like it made my skin crawl in a way. Like literally I had that feeling a lot where I don't want to be touched by you. Oftentimes when he would, and this must have sucked from his perspective, right? For him to be there, he really likes me and he loves me and wants to be with me and all this stuff. And then here he has his boyfriend who really is not wanting to be with him at all and not wanting to be touched by him. I didn't even want to be touched by him. Like every time he would kind of touch my skin, it'd be like, oh, it made me kind of cringe and yuck, you know. Yeah. Oh, God. This makes me cringe just thinking about it. Like, oh, something really clingy and needy about even the way he touched me. Like, creepy. Yeah. So I didn't want to be in the bed with him. I didn't want him to stay around, but I acquiesced and yeah, okay, whatever. He wants me to stay around. And this is the weird thing. Like, I'd committed to him. I had committed to this relationship. And I think it ties in with the fact that I'd committed to this new identity. I really think a lot of it ties into how I formed an identity around being gay. So, and I told everyone as well, and now so I kind of had to. I felt like I had to maintain this image of being gay, and so being with him was, or a key indicator, social indicator, if you like, to show other people, look, I say I'm gay, I am gay because I've got a boyfriend, therefore I'm gay. Look, I'm gay, aren't I? Look at me, I'm gay. Give me attention because I'm gay. Let me into your little group because I'm gay, so therefore I'm not a threat to the women folk. Obviously, I'm not happy with how I went about things. Yeah, so he came over, and he had obviously had this kind of plan in his head about how things were going to go. That he was going to cook a perfect dinner or something, and it was going to be this beautiful romantic evening for the both of us. And then he comes round. We've got this tiny little kitchen in that halls. Tiny little kitchen with like a microwave and a couple of hobs, and a really tiny kitchen, like smaller than this room, a lot smaller than this room. You couldn't really get two people in there at the same time. You'd be like bumping into each other. So there's room for the bin, a couple of cupboards under there, a sink, microwave, and like a little hob there. Maybe it had an oven. I'm not sure, but it was pretty bad. We lived in catered halls, so we got. It was like maybe it was only on weekends, I think, that you had to fend for yourself for dinner. Otherwise, all other meals were provided. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think, yeah, breakfast, lunch, and dinner were provided for every day in the canteen thing, and you had this kind of little points card that was you loaded it up or something with like I don't know, it's somehow related to your course fees. Yeah, it's related to your course fees. So you paid your course fees and you load up your card with your month of money on your card thing, whatever, and then you can use it to swipe and buy items using that, whatever. Yeah. So, but it wasn't fully 100% every single meal. I think it was weekends where you had to fend for yourself on the evenings, definitely, but maybe even for the whole of the weekend. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, so he'd come over, and I believe it was a Friday night. Yeah, and he wanted to, or Saturday night, he wanted to cook this perfect meal, and he'd come in there, and it's a terrible small kitchen, and I'm like, I've made, I've made pita bread with apricots and nuts in it and butter. That's what I'm going to be eating. And he got really kind of distressed about this whole thing, and was really upset, like really, really upset, and was causing a fuss about it. And it came to light that he had this perfect evening in mind for us, and it got all wrong. Which is kind of sweet in a way. But the fact was that he kind of couldn't deal with things going wrong. All right, so I'm seeing it more from a different perspective now. I'm seeing it more from the fact that he was young and he was kind of naive and he was obsessed and in love with me, and I'd already been through a relationship, a long-term relationship. So I had some experience. Now he'd only been with like one other guy, and it didn't seem like it was very much of a relationship. So I suppose, plus because I'd had some other shorter-term relationships, I suppose that I felt a little bit more, understanding of myself in regards to relationships. So I wasn't so. I wasn't so quick to like obsess about someone anymore. I was kind of like over that phase a little bit more. I didn't kind of go, whoa, head over heels in love with someone and start telling everyone about how amazing they are and stuff. And I mean, part of me says, well, maybe you just weren't really able to do that with him because the intimacy issue, you weren't kind of really able to fall in love with him because he was a dick and a possessive, fucking whiny, clinging, needy fucking asshole who was really insecure. And why would you even want to fall in love with him? Okay, yeah, well, that's another aspect of myself. So we had this, tried to have this meal, and he got very upset about the fact that it hadn't gone his way, and like it was like he couldn't kind of move past it. In a very childish way. And he sort of caused a fuss and went into a sulk and into a mood about it. And there was a lot of that happened, where he had this perfect plan in his mind about how things were going to go. And then I'm an independent being, so I have my own thoughts and feelings and wishes and wants and desires and my own actions and behaviors, right? So like, it's like he wanted me to go along with his every plan. And when I decided something else that didn't go along with his plan, it was like it destroyed his whole universe temporarily. But to the point where he just kind of couldn't function briefly. He wouldn't know what to do, and he'd have a panic attack or something, or he'd freak out, or he'd be really mean to me somehow. Yeah. And so it's like he couldn't just kind of allow me to be myself, and he couldn't allow other people to be themselves. It's like he had to be in control at all times, in order for him to feel safe somehow, or I don't know, like maybe I don't know. I don't know where it came from in terms of his backstory. I don't know how he developed that obsessive need to control the flow of events. But I was a serious challenge for him because I was in a phase of my life, and I still am in a phase of my life, where I'm a very free being, and if anyone tries to control me, I will let them know. And it's virtually impossible to control me. It's impossible to control my own self. you know, I'm not someone who is easily contained and who easily goes along with plans that other people set for me. I'm quite happy to follow plans that I mutually set with people. But if someone tries to impose a plan upon me, and I don't feel it's good for me or will benefit me or is right for me, then you'll probably find me just walking out of that situation pretty much, because I'm like, if someone's trying to impose their own situation on me and I can't see that that's right or good for me, or that it's going to hurt, or I see it's going to hurt me or harm me, then I'll just like be, nah, not having it, and I'll just walk, or you won't find me there for very long. I think that's why I find jobs so hard, because everything is imposed upon you from the outside in a job situation. So like, you have all these forms to fill in for one thing. You have all these rules to abide by in the workplace. Then also you have the unwritten rules of the workplace as well, that are sort of kind of grey and you don't really know what they are. And then they suddenly rear their head when you transgress against one, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know it was a thing. And then you have like all these hierarchies that are externally imposed as well, so that like everyone fits into a little hierarchical slot. And I'm going, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. These hierarchies, okay, so they're a pay band and they're a responsibility role, but then after that, where's the humanity here? Like, I'm always someone who is looking for the humanity of a person. I look at someone and I don't see them in terms of them being a role. I see them as being who they are right like then. So if you come at me with authority and rules and stuff, and try and force me into situations or force me to abide by rules that I don't agree with, then I'll just go, I'm an independent, intelligent being, and no, which means it's hard for me to get along with rigid structural systems, basically. It's amazing I don't get arrested more often. I have been arrested a fair few times in my life. But like, yeah. Anyway, that's a digression. So he was very much a controlling person. He liked to have things planned out. He always had lists going on. And I'm not like averse to lists and plans, okay? But these things are stuff that he was like putting on to me without a discussion, and I can't deal with that because it's like I'm not being involved here. You're just trying to push me around or contain me or sort of trap me or something. Yeah. Anyway, so that was this one occasion where he kind of freaked out and had a big sulky, wobbly moment or few because the evening hadn't turned out how he wanted it to. And then he was kind of like in a sulk about it. And then it might have even been the second day, like on the morning of that. Oh, yeah, and we had to have sex that night as well. Oh. Oh. And I had to lay in the bed with him, even though I rather would have been in my own bed, which is just over there. So we had this like air bed, which I laid on it with him and slept with him and had sex with him, even though I didn't want to. And then I would have much rather been on my single bed over there by myself, which I found comfortable, and I didn't have a creepy, cringy, needy, clingy, possessive man next to me who creeped me out by the touch of him. Yeah. And I kind of want to go back to that time and back to that instance after I've initially had the wank off with him. My first gay sexual experience as an adult. I mean, I don't really think the stuff that I did as a child really counts as a gay sexual experience. It counts because it was me with other boys, but there was no attraction there, and there was no feeling of kind of like there was no feeling of it being a homosexual thing. It was just something like a more of an experimental thing, that more like play, if that makes sense. Yeah. But so this is my first experiment with a homosexual interaction, and after that, I wish I'd quit that job and just gone and done something else. And forgot about it really, or just like processed it and gone, I don't want to do that again. I wish I hadn't got sucked into it. I wish I hadn't carried on in that relationship, because really it was 2 years of mostly suffering. Suffering sounds like a really strong word, and part of me says it's too strong, and part of me says no, that's the right word to use. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how negative I speak about him. And it's also amazing how much I didn't really acknowledge how many of these negative feelings I was having, and so I didn't really acknowledge them at the time. I mean, I felt them at the time, right? But I didn't kind of cue into what they're telling me to do. Like, these things were telling me basically to get away from this person. So that feeling of like that creepy feeling going through my body when I touch him and not wanting to be near him and not wanting him to be around, and feeling trapped by him and wanting to be away from him, and feeling like he's annoying me and feeling like he's whiny and needy and possessive and clingy, and me not wanting to speak to him and me feeling pressured to be in contact with him. All those feelings are indicators to say you shouldn't be with him. Like, you need to move on. You need to break up with him. And again, I'm I'm trying to realize or acknowledge deeply what it was that drove me to stay with him, because that is, from my perspective now, that is a relationship I would never go into, that kind of relationship. My most recent relationship started getting a little bit like that after 2.5 months, and I was like, no, that's it, it's done. I just got rid of her.
Broke up with her.
Yeah. As soon as I realised that I was starting to play a relationship role, and I was starting to bring suffering into the relationship, and also I realised that she really wasn't treating me well at all. I mean, again, in that most recent relationship, I probably should have quit that relationship a hell of a lot sooner. Maybe that's like Mr.B Mark II, because with Mr.B, I had this one night stand kind of sexual interaction with him, and then it became a relationship, as we know. And my regret is that I didn't leave it as just a one night stand and I continued it on. So similarly with this most recent relationship, I had a one night stand with her. And okay, so maybe for that, I mean, I think that's a bit harsh actually, because I really enjoyed a hell of a lot of this most recent relationship. It was just that there was some unforgivable rule breaking of the relationship code, i.e., cheating and extensive flirting outside of the relationship. So the first time she cheated on me, it's iffy as to whether or not it was cheating, because it was like in the first week of the relationship, and I'm like, are we just fuck buddies at this point? What is this, you know? But then when the pattern continued on, and I noticed she's still kind of flirting a hell of a lot with other guys, and I was like, okay, that's enough, you know. So farts all around, you know. But in a way, I'm proud of myself that I did snip that one, like, and nip that one in the bud. So what is this? Is it some kind of desperation thing? Is it desperation that I cling to being in a relationship? I mean, but what? But it doesn't make any sense, because there's been times in my life where I've been single for a long period of time and I've been okay. Like I've been single now for fuck. Like single, not in a relationship for a year and a half, and I'm not exactly craving a relationship. I do feel like I want to have intimacy with a woman again. I feel I want to have snuggles. I want to have sex, but it's like it's not that much of a big deal as it used to be. It used to be a much more bigger deal, and I feel like I kind of maxed out on intimacy and sex for a while, and I'm like, okay, I need a rest, and I'm still not fully rested on that level of intimacy. So yeah. Anyway, so let's go back to talking about Mr.B. And I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, so why really, really, really did I stay with him for so long? There's a little part that said, oh, because you liked the turmoil of it somehow. Like, you liked the drama of it. You liked the fact that there was something to win. Arguments to win. You wanted to win. And then there's another part which is about commitment. Some ideal I had about commitment. I mean, it might relate to Mrs. A. That I maybe felt that I didn't commit strongly enough to Mrs. A, and that the next person I was going to be with, that I should commit more strongly to. And I remember feeling like and thinking that it was an important life lesson for me to learn about commitment, because something I had done in my whole life was to start things and not finish them, or to not go through with projects fully. Projects. Yeah, projects. Mm. Projects. Did I see Mr.B as a project that I wasn't fully committed to, or that I was trying to commit to? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I saw him as a project. I felt like commitment was a big issue for me. That I needed to sort of state who I was to the world. I needed to commit to an avenue of expression. I needed to commit to a self-definition as well. So that ties in with the gay aspect. I wanted to commit to this gay identity, and sort of put all my investment in it, if that makes sense. So I wanted to sort of put all my social efforts into this gay identity. Maybe this is too deep right now for you to understand. Like, maybe this, I don't know. I really feel like I was getting a lot of social identity out of being gay. I would just tell everyone about it all the time. I would tell everyone. It would be like the first thing out of my mouth. Hi, I'm Ross, and yeah, I'm gay. Love me. Accept me. Mm. Yeah, and now I'm like in the opposite direction. I don't want anyone to think I'm gay. I don't really want anyone to know about my past. I don't associate with that part of me. uh, Right. Well, what else? It's like, why do people stay in difficult relationships when they're suffering and they're in pain and it's hard and I don't know. What was that commitment there that I couldn't just let him go and stop talking to him? Just stop calling, kind of. Just stop replying, and it's a guilt. The first thing that brings up is guilt. I feel guilty. I feel bad for not responding or for cutting him off. I feel bad for abandoning people. I feel bad for hurting people. I feel bad for having my own needs and having my own feelings and having my own wants. It's like I'm not allowed to have that response. And there's that relationship rule, which is part of being in the relationship, is that, like, part of the thing that's imposed upon you when you're in a relationship is, once you commit to relationship, the main rule is you don't break up. That like, if it's a relationship, then you're not broken up. So if you break up, that breaks the rule. That's the end of the relationship. So it's like, but that, it felt like there was this kind of feeling that I wasn't even allowed to break up with him, which is strange because, well, I was young, so I didn't really have the same understanding of relationship dynamics that I do now, which is okay. Relationships are based on choice, right? Relationships are one person and another person coming together out of choice. Yeah. And previously, my understanding of relationships was you come together with a person out of need, I think, out of it, and also out of it's supposed to be that way, which is another tricky, subtle energy where the pressure, you're supposed to be in a relationship, that that society overall says people are supposed to be in relationships. And I didn't have any understanding of a single person who was happy. Everyone I knew was trying to get in a relationship, or was in a relationship, or was having some kind of sexual relationships stuff going on, or they were Christian and they didn't have anything to do with relationships and wanted to be celibate until they got married. which was another whole thing, which is just not my deal at all. Not keen on that whole no sex before marriage thing. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's very oppressive, in fact. So, Mr. B. Why did I stay with him? Guilt. Guilt. I couldn't face breaking up with him. I didn't want to hurt him. I'd made it a commitment to him, and it meant something to me to honour my commitment to him. It was more about me in that sense. It was more about my own feeling of... I think I would have felt like a failure if I hadn't followed through on the commitment. I wanted to see something through. And I wanted to see myself as a person who was able to be a committed person. I wanted to see myself as a committed person. So I could be in a committed relationship, which meant that I wouldn't stray or flirt with other people, right? And then, unfortunately, the natural nature of me in that situation actually was to flirt with a lot of women, actually. Yeah. I feel a bit bad for him. Like, I feel a bit sorry for Mr. B, because it must have been pretty shit being with me from his end of things. You know, I didn't want to be with him, and that must be tough for someone else. Like, if I was with someone who didn't want to be with me, well, for one thing, now I'd just be like, why am I doing this? I'm out of here. You know, this is doing nothing for me. You don't want to be with me? Fine. I'm gone. I don't care. You know, I'm not going to hang around wasting my time, wasting your time, whoever's time, being with someone who doesn't want to be with me. Like, why you? I would be asking that person, well, if you don't want to be with me, then why are you here? Why don't you just break up with me? What is your deal? What? So you say you don't like me and you don't want to be with me, yet you keep responding to my calls, and you keep messaging me back, and you haven't broken up with me. So why are you here? Like, this is my central conundrum of this whole relationship. Why did I stay so long? Because there's like part of me was committed and was stuck, and then part of me was like whining and hating the whole experience. Yet I would keep coming back for it, if that makes sense. So it wasn't strong enough, or I wasn't strong enough. Okay, I feel like I wasn't strong enough to break free of it. And there's, I don't know, was it the drama of it? Or was it like this kind of pull of pain to pull into the pain, and it's like hard to sort of pull away from the pain, because the pain has this kind of gravitational field around it, and you kind of get addicted to it. Yeah. Why did I stay in that relationship for so long while I was not enjoying it? I think, okay, so here's another idea around it. So I think that I hadn't fully realized the truth for myself. I can say that. I hadn't fully realized the extent of how much I was suffering in the relationship, and I hadn't realized that it was to do with the relationship. So I hadn't realized that it was being with him was the source of a lot of my suffering. And as I was mentioning earlier on, so I had all these feelings of discomfort and not enjoying it and not wanting to be there and stuff, but it was like I hadn't fully acknowledged that to myself. I was aware of it because I was feeling it, and then I was expressing it to him as well, like, don't touch me, or don't stroke my arm, or like, I don't want to have contact right now. I don't want to have sex, making excuses about why I didn't want to have sex. including Buddhism as an excuse as well, that was a pretty shit way of using religion against him, to be fair. Yeah. Oh, God. So, but I hadn't fully realised the extent of my feelings and understood what they were trying to tell me. And part of that actually was because I was in an enmeshed, codependent relationship with a hell of a lot of, oh God, what's this word? So preciousness. So he was very precious about it. He was very smothering. So it felt like even when I wasn't with him in physical contact, like even when he wasn't in my presence or I wasn't speaking to him, it's like I could feel him. He'd invaded me somewhat, so that the relationship commitment had this weird hold over my mind and my emotions and my behavior to some extent. So it's like I felt him creeping on me or needing on me or possessing onto me or clinging onto me even when he wasn't around. So I was like always aware of how he would be responding to me in situations. So like it's like we'd become a kind of dual person. So we'd merged, and he was always having something to say about everything that I did. Um, yeah. So another expression would be in each other's pockets, but even when he wasn't around, it was still that feeling of claustrophobia. So part of the reason why I didn't feel I was able to, or why I didn't fully acknowledge my feelings about this relationship, was because the relationship itself was so smothering that I didn't have the space to even acknowledge how I had been feeling. Like, so I had I journaled and stuff, right? And so I wrote down my feelings, and then I had the feeling that I had to always show him. So there was no sense of having my own private individual experience and me making an individual decision about my life in relation to him. There was always that sense of being codependently connected with this person, so that any experience that I was going through had to be relayed to him. I had to share everything with him. It was this weird form of intimacy where there's no boundary, basically. There's no boundary between the two people. So the two people can't have their own. I mean, I wasn't doing it to him, but he was doing it to me. Like, he had to know everything about my internal experience, like all the time, in order to be reassured or something about him being okay. And making sure that I didn't stray, because he was trying to always contain me and make sure that I didn't stray. He was always trying to maintain the relationship by kind of controlling me so that I didn't run away. Whereas the real best thing for both of us in that situation would have been for just me to stray, to go away, because then he wouldn't feel constantly insecure about trying to keep me there, and I would feel the freedom that I was yearning for, to be free and to have my university life to myself, to not have the invasion of him coming in all the time, and to not feel like he was cramping my style, basically. I felt like he was a constant pressure on me to not enjoy myself. That I had to always go home to talk to him at the end of the day. I had to always go back to my room so that I could have a Skype call with him or a phone call with him, and so we could have a mutual masturbation session over Skype or whatever. And he needed to have at least an hour or 2 hours every single day of contact. And God, I think that had I lived that again, that whole period of my life, I wouldn't live any of it again. I would stop it. I would stop it precisely after the point of the first double hand job of our first night together. I would have stopped it there, and that would be the end. And then I wouldn't have to go through any of that stuff, because initially the only experience that I consciously decided that I wanted was to experiment with the gay sex thing, or the man on man thing, whatever, to see if I was gay or not, or whatever. Yeah. Man. There's still more to say as well. I haven't said another. There's another aspect, another occasion, to talk about. Oh God, there's so many occasions to talk about. I feel like I barely scratched the surface somewhat. Oh my Lord. Okay, well, I don't feel quite fulfilled, as in I don't feel like I quite got to emptiness. You know, when you got like a certain amount of energy on a particular topic, and you want to get to the end of it for this session. I feel bad as well. I feel like I'm being so mean to him. I'm being so harsh towards him. And part of me wants to just say, oh, come on, he was only young and you were only young, and go easy on yourselves. You know, go easy on the past version of you. And what did you know? But again, the point is that led on to worse suffering and more difficult situations, and also it had a deeper legacy than I acknowledged for a long time. So I get the feeling like people watching this video might be like, why are you still going on about this one relationship? Because it really did affect me. That's why. And until it's done inside of me, until it's over inside of me, because it's obviously not finished yet, I haven't finished with it yet, you know, like finishing with something so that you can say, okay, I'm done with it now. I don't have to repeat that. That energy's gone. That energy's dissipated. I'm finished. Forgiveness kind of thing. Like, I've seen it all now. I mean, I feel like you can't fully forgive someone unless you actually know what has happened. And part of that is to actually acknowledge what has happened. And you can't really let something go until you've acknowledged the events that have happened fully and the feelings that you had fully. Exactly. Very good. Yeah. Because otherwise it just will come up. It still comes up. So he was very perfectionist, and controlling, and couldn't seem to handle when things were going wrong, and he wanted to make sure that everything was always perfect and right, and perfect is the right word, perfect. I mean, I'm starting to see a more of a sweet side to him shining through in my memories. So he was sweet, I suppose, but then it's very quickly followed by this sense of sickliness. Like, oh, you know? And it sucks because we just weren't right for each other. And I was trying so hard to make it so that I was right for him, which meant that I was just not being myself, not being right for me, as in I wasn't being my right self. I wasn't being who I really was. I was being a fucked up version of myself, a mess version of myself, a gay version of myself that was a complete construction. Yeah, it was a complete construction. Well, on that note, I will say goodbye, and I will catch you another time. See you soon. Speak to you soon. Bye.